Welcome back to The Pew. I'm Michael. Today we'll be talking about legacy. I'm here with Janelle, Antoinette, and Margot. And of course, long distance on the calling card, Selena. So today, speaking of legacy, we would like to first pay homage and honor to Sherwood Carthen. He was the pastor that started Boss here and got it going and started the momentum it had. It was short-lived for me. When I came on to Boss, I got to hear this great man speak, and I will, as I told my friends, I will state he was one of the greatest speakers on the planet, and I was gifted the reward to hear him speak about the Bible, speak the word, and tell us about Jesus' love letter to us. So even though I got to be in meetings with him and I got to have these private conversations with him, the most joy I got was watching him do his thing in his element. Yeah. Janelle.
Yeah, and so actually I have had very few interactions with Pastor Sherwood, but I think that's the great thing about him is when you carry a legacy, it's beyond you, you know? So even though I didn't have one-on-one interactions, his impact was such a huge part of my life. The one interaction, I don't want to say the very few interactions I had with him, he actually baptized me when I gave my life to Christ. So that's just huge in my walk with God. And one of the things that I remember is actually during his funeral. His impact was just so evident. We were paying honor to him and everything that he's done in the city. But it was probably one of the longest funerals that I've actually been to, or services, and I think that just speaks to his impact and legacy here in Sacramento. It was one leader after another just going up and speaking about what an impact he had in their lives, in their organizations, and even in the city of Sacramento. And so he's just had a huge impact on my life, and even here in Sacramento as well.
Yeah, he just had a dynamic force that was so powerful, and just watching him preach was everything. And he was like one of those people that when they just spoke and preached, like it just instantly made you want to like change your life. Like it's like, okay, I got to get right with God. I got to do this. Like he was just so impactful. Like it was really good to just witness him. And actually, we were in Bible study with him. I think it was literally the night before he passed away, and just to hear him speak. And one of the things he said at that Bible study was, when I leave this earth, I pray that God would say, job well done. And it was like, yes, when he left, he left such an impact on our community, and he's greatly missed. He's greatly missed.
Yeah, I never met him. I was going to Faith Fellowship when I encountered him. He came to preach before he actually had a congregation. And literally after this man preached, about 6% of our membership followed him. I mean, that's like, this is how awesome this guy was with presenting the word in such a practical way. The way he just broke that thing down was so cool. And like he just would bring all these different elements into it that even had for someone, for a Black man, I think that it was impactful to me to see for a Black man to have such a diverse church. There was one time I went to Sac City. Were you guys at City?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Sac City and looked around at that ministry and was just like, this is dope. Like it was really tight. So this man, this giant of a man, just impacting people. And I remember to this day, he spoke about, this was years ago. It was literally before the church actually had a congregation or a meeting spot. But he talked about facts and how Christ came through and like slashed through facts that people knew to be true. Like I literally remember that word, and I don't remember a lot of words because this memory's not that great, but I remember that word. So yeah, it feels awesome to be a part of his legacy. Like we're a part, even though I didn't even go to his church at the time of him living, but to be a part of his legacy, something that he left for me to flourish from, and didn't even know me.
And just to add to that, it's interesting to talk about a godly legacy, because it sounds like that's exactly what he left. You know, I came to Boss under the leadership of our current senior pastor, Daryl Scarborough. But if the foundation wasn't there, there would be no Boss. And to know that he left such a strong, godly legacy, not just a regular legacy, but a godly legacy that others like myself, you know, could come and feel safe and be in a space. And like you talked about the diversity, Marco, that was one of the things that blew me away, you know, because it wasn't like, okay, we got one or two diverse people. Like, it's a full blended Boss, you know, and that's what Jesus looks like to me. So, you know, I think it's amazing if you got an opportunity to meet such a man, but at least even be able to branch off of that. That's even more of a blessing.
Awesome.
Yeah, very nice.
So speaking of legacy, that's a great segue into our first topic of going into Black history. So as we speak about Black history, normally we're presented with the yin and yang of Black history, where you're either presented with passive or aggressive, chaos or calm, right, peace or war. And when we split this up, we're talking about Martin or Malcolm, right?
Yep.
So I would like to ask you guys, who were you influenced by in Black history and why?
You know, for me, man, realistically, like during the time that I grew up, of course, I heard of Martin. Of course, I heard of Malcolm. It was for me like the people in the community. Like, it was just those people that I saw regularly in the community. It was the pastors. It was, you know, those dudes that were like, those Black dudes walking to the church, like telling us, not to the church, to the school, like telling us, get in there. And then, you know, it was like those people that I saw regularly. I can't even front and say like, oh, I was so motivated by Martin. I was so, now, don't get me wrong. I, of course, benefited from everything that Martin did and that Malcolm did and all. There's so many Jesse Jacksons and Al Sharpton and all of those that have been behind the scene. I benefited, but it was those that were tangible for me. You know what I mean? It was those people that I was actually able to hold conversations with and just steer me, put me right.
Same here. I would say for me, this is my dad and my grandpa. Just seeing them wake up every day to go to work and just working, the work ethic that they instilled very much instilled it in me. And so they're always been like an influence in my life. And I would say Martin Luther King and just all our ancestors who fought so hard for everything that we have. It's like, okay, my education is so important to me because we used to not be able to get an education. So that's something that I would say motivated me to go to the highest degree because of our ancestors and the fact that they wasn't able to learn or be able to go to school at some point. So that just influenced me within itself.
Oh yeah, that's good.
I think my experience is a little bit different. I mean,
Why?
even just,
No.
I don't know. No. But I think like even the civil rights movement and everything that Martin Luther King was doing, me as a minority, I benefit from it. My son is biracial, and so there's as a minority, and even as a woman, the civil rights movement just benefited me in just in that aspect. I would say and I feel like I would identify more with Martin Luther King because, you know, he's a preacher and he's, you know, a godly man. I would probably more identify with him. But to be honest with you, a little to what you were saying, Margot, is because my son is biracial at a young age. I mean, I didn't grow up in, you know, Black culture or Black community or anything like that. But as he started to grow up, he started to face some challenges, you know, racial challenges ever since he was little, being excluded because, you know, his skin is darker and different things like that.
Yeah.
But so I had to educate myself. I had to, because I am the more present parent in his life, be able, from not being a Black person to be able to immerse myself in Black culture and just seek out the help, the help and education that I need so I can help my son. So one of the people that was just super impactful in that is One of my friends, Pastor Judah Dwight, he's a young adult pastor at Bridgeway right now, but he, at the time, like he mentored my son. So he brought over a ton of Black history books like children books where he can, my son could identify, we could read them together. So I would say he was like a huge part, him in addition to other Black men and women that just helped me, like are helping me raise my son to be able to speak to the Black experience, because even though I'm a great mother, I feel like I'm limited in that aspect because I'm a minority, but I'm not Black. And so I would say just the people that have decided to invest in me and my son's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me personally, it sounds repetitive, but it is Dr. King. And the reason for me, well, he's one of them. My list is kind of weird. So I would say Dr. King, Michael Jordan. I know he's not that historical, but Michael had an effect on me, and I'll explain. But I remember being in elementary school where we used to have speeches, and we had to go to the library to pick our topic. And one of the books that stood out to me was a book that said MLK Jr. And that's what opened my eyes to Dr. King and what he was all about. So that impacted me throughout my entire life, because I'm from Toronto, for those of you who don't know. And my background, my parents are Jamaican. So watching them come up and migrate to Canada, we didn't have our Black experience is a little different, because, you know, we're coming from a culture that is predominantly Black into this new, you know, and that was about in the 60s, my parents came to Canada, where it's predominantly white. And even though we were here, we know the Underground Railroad came through, you know, Canada, it still wasn't really, it hasn't been taught in the schools. You know, we don't have that education. So if you're looking for that information, you had to go and look for it yourself. So I was able to educate myself a lot through Dr. King's experience. And that was really helpful and life-changing for me. And why I mentioned Jordan is because it's just his warmth, his ethic. I love basketball. I played, I wasn't the best player, but I played all through high school. And even watching his documentary recently, which I watched like twice already, you know, just his drive and determination as a Black man growing up in the US, and the things that, you know, he didn't have the regular, okay, I grew up in the hood experience, but he still had this type of worth ethic that was actually something that I tried to elucidate and model myself after. So I would pick those for those reasons, those people.
Yeah, and so for me, like my influences were kind of to what you were saying, was that most of my influence, I grew up in a matriarchal household. So it was my grandmother and godmother and my mom. And so even though I seen the value in both Martin and Malcolm being a growing man when I was growing up and I was getting my history lessons, I felt like I leaned towards Martin because of my religious side, but also my street side leaned towards Malcolm.
Buddy.
So I felt like there was a point where, yeah, I'm gonna be Martin up to this point, but then at some point Malcolm's gonna kick in. And I think we've been seeing that today. But with that being said, in today's society, do we need Black leaders? Does the Black community need leaders? And when I say that, I want to put a little bit more conciseness on it. I don't know if that's a word, but Black leaders are, and we're not talking about like rap artists and stuff like that. Not saying they can't be, but what I'm saying is that when I'm speaking about a leader, we should look for somebody like going back to the past and seeing someone that actually brings change. And when I say change, I mean voter rights, fair housing.
I agree.
I'm talking about actual change that's going to benefit the community. So with that being said, do we need leaders like that? And mind you, like when we do elevate these people to leaders, like their health is at risk as well. Like a lot of our Black leaders die, right?
Oh yeah.
So do we need Black leaders?
Yeah, I think we do. When we have these protests and we have people out here marching, they do that, and then what happens after that? I feel like we need someone in place that could say, hey, everyone, go to your city council, make sure that you guys vote on this, make sure that you guys try to get this passed. Let's try to get this bill written and passed. And so I think we definitely need someone that is in politics, that we know like what to pass, what we should fight for, what could help us in our communities, our schools. our just our life in general. So yeah, I think we definitely need a leader. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, let's look at the Bible. God always had in the Old Testament, God always had someone present to call the people to order, someone present to motivate the people, to direct the people, to say what says the Lord, and to just organize. You know what I mean? So yeah, I believe it goes back, and I know, so many people, well, that's the Old Testament, this is that and the other, but history repeats itself. And I just really think that leaders are important because, especially today, everybody has their own agenda.
Yeah.
Everybody has so many different distractions that they're battling with, and you need that one or however many that actually come together and are able to see eye to eye to get this group together and to get that group together. Leaders are important. I think that they are mandated by God.
Yeah.
I think that there are some that are just, I don't know if they're occupied right now, if they're just don't know what their calling is just yet, but I do believe that in every season, God has lifted up leaders that are called to bring us to organize. I don't know where they are. I don't know where they are, but we can call, and I even think our pastor could be one. I hate to call him out like that.
You hear that?
But I really believe Pastor Daryl could definitely be that, for Sacramento. Yeah. There are a number of them, and of course they don't necessarily have to be pastors, but it's needed to know what thus says the Lord, because to me in this fight, God is going to reveal it to his people what our positioning should be. And I will always preach this and say this: there is a position in this fight for everybody. Everybody has a certain position that they should be in, be it front line on your knees, be it handing out something, be it whatever it is. But yeah, we got to have it because we're not organized.
Yeah. And I think that's like the danger of it. Well, because, people are looking for a leader, and if there isn't a leader that, thus saith the Lord, or, has, just uses the Bible and God as a compass, if that doesn't happen, and say another worldly leader steps up.
Yeah.
If that's the only option, rather than being inactive, they're going to follow that, and they're going to come behind something that may not be in alignment with the God's agenda or God's spirit. And so, I think I agree. It is necessary, and necessary to have somebody, like I said, who believes in God, who really uses God as a moral compass or as compass. Period.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I definitely believe we are in need of leaders. Again, I'm coming from the Canadian experience, and it's a little different over here, but pretty much very similar. And we point fingers a lot as to the fact that it should be you. And I remember seeing it, especially when we're going through the whole experience through 2020 with all the chaos, with our brothers and sisters being killed in the streets. And everybody was crying out, can somebody do something? And I think what we've fallen out, what we're not realizing is that we ourselves can do more, because we're looking for this image to follow the Martin or the Malcolm kind of look, or the Marcus Garvey type of look. But it really begins with us. So even the little bit that I can do, it actually motivated me to kind of be more of somebody who speaks up, because here in Canada, when you're dealing with like issues on race, we're so polite about everything over here in Canada, right? So the racism actually happens very politely. So you're not even sure if you just got slapped. You're like, what? Did that just happen? Because they said it so politely.
Hey,
So
what did they say? I'm interested. What did they say?
So, I mean, literally it's the same thing. It's the same experiences, but, it's more covert, in my opinion, from my experiences, right? So it's really hard for us to kind of branch out and say, okay, you know what, we got to stand up I noticed that when we're watching like the U.S. news and things like that, then we're seeing more of the marches. We just started having those kind of marches this year in my 44 years of being on this earth, to see the marches happening downtown Toronto and things like that. But even then, our marches are a lot more controlled in most cases. So it's a bit of a different experience, but we're definitely in need of more leaders here as well.
Yeah. Like, so
I know all over what I've been seeing on social media is that there has been protests all over the country with black folks. I don't know what you call them in Britain and all of that, but black folks have been protesting all over the place. What really though is the Canadian experience with Black history and all of that? Like, can you tell us? There's black folks in Canada, like.
So this is a conversation I've been dying to have. Yes, there's a whole lot of black people in Canada. I remember going to the US so many times. I used to go to New York often because we have family in Brooklyn. And every time I got there and I meet somebody who was born and raised in Brooklyn, they'd be like, oh, do you guys live in igloos? And I didn't know there was black people over there. I went to Vegas in 2012 and somebody said to me in a restroom, I was at the Steve Harvey Hoodie Awards, and this woman came up to me and said, there's black people in Toronto? And I was like, I left my girlfriend there because I couldn't. I was like, I can't have this conversation because I thought everybody understood that there would be black people here, considering the Underground Railroad led to Canada.
that part.
And we had slavery here too. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm like, what? So yes, sorry. There is black people here in Canada.
I didn't know that there was there too. I had no clue. So there was slavery there as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So our abolition, and I don't have the exact year off the top of my head, but our abolition of slavery just ended a bit sooner. But there was slavery here as well. It was the same type of experience that we had. It just ended a little sooner than yours. But even though it ended, we were still dealing with the same racial issues that you are, our Southern brothers and sisters were dealing with, and it's quite interesting that, like I said, because the experience and the culture is a little bit different, it's not a ton, like a big difference, but I feel like Canada sometimes is worse off because of the fact that there's so much that is hidden. Like, I'll give you an example. This past summer, there was a death that occurred. Still don't know the details to it, but somebody jumped on social media as soon as it happened and said, we need you all to come down here as civilians because the TV stations were told not to come. So we don't even get our stuff broadcasted in the media. So it's happening, but they want it to make it look like it's not. Right? So this is what we struggle with over here, that it's more covered up and people are afraid. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to offend, or I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to lose, and coming from most of the blacks that are here, I'm a first generation black. So majority of what we're dealing with, because Canada is very multicultural, especially in Toronto, you're dealing with immigrants' children. And then I find that with immigrants, they're more of like, keep your head down and just do what you got to do, because we're trying to make it here. We're trying to build so we can go back home and whatever. So nobody wants to offend to mess up what their future, like we talk about legacy. Nobody wants to mess up that legacy that they're trying to plan for their children, the financial building and everything like that. So it's like, keep your head down. I used to struggle with my mom all the time when I'd be at work, and I know they're judging me because of my skin color, and I'm having such a hard time, and I couldn't talk to her about it because she's like, God will take care. Don't you worry about it. And I'm like, no, Mom, it's not like that anymore. I got to say something, right? I have to actually say something so that some change can occur. So we still have the same experiences here. The list goes on. And we do have, some Black leaders here who are doing great things, but we're still behind a bit when it comes to that.
Yeah. So y'all don't have a leader either. Okay. Yeah, we gotta have a leader.
I think we're seeing leaders attempt, right? We're seeing, but like Janelle was saying, I think the moral code behind it gives us it gives us some. I'm waiting for the edit. What word am I thinking of? Well, I'm waiting for the edit. when you're cautious, not cautious, but apprehension.
Apprehension. Okay.
That's a big word, Mike. That's a big
It was
word.
a good one. It
That
was
was
good.
good. That was good.
So I believe that, like Janelle was saying, I think the leaders that we are seeing pop up now are giving us apprehension because we don't understand their moral code or know their moral code.
That's true.
It's easier for us as Christians to follow people of the same moral code. But, because when you get to those decision points, whether you're going to protest, whether you're going to get arrested, when you're going to, because like protests can change people's lives, right?
Yes.
I think we would be more in tune to follow somebody who's following God because we know we're sacrificing for the kingdom.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
So with that being said, let's talk about Black history. How is Black history received? How is it sent out? I think you would be the best to start off on this one. Like, how did you, especially with, like you said, you have a biracial son, like how was Black history taught to you and what are you making sure is instilled in your son?
Well, I know myself growing up, I feel like, well, let me just say this. I know growing up, we kind of touched on Black history, but it's still not, the whole American history in the books that I read are very not accurate when I was growing up. So I specifically put my son in a school where it's predominantly minorities. And so he goes to St. Hope, PS7. And I put him there because the teachers and the staff, they cater to their student population. You know what I mean? What's relevant to the students. So that is, I felt I had to put him in an environment where I feel like he would thrive more because of the knowledge and education the teachers had, not only for Black history and Black culture, in addition to obviously math and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like he would be taken care of and he wouldn't go under the radar, whereas the other school that he went to was predominantly a different minority, but I feel like he was just not getting the attention he needed. I guess I'm lucky in that way that he is in an environment where he knows about Black history, and they're most likely going to teach it accurately, and they're going to have lessons that make sense to him culturally and different things like that. So that's something that I had to do, is to put him in that environment.
Black history. How was it taught?
And I can give you some additional things that you want, because I can tell you what 2020 benefited for me was that I seen a lot of Black history was missing from what was presented to me in school. I didn't know the full depth of the 13th Amendment. I didn't know anything about Rosewood or Tulsa massacres.
No.
Yep.
I didn't know about
Come on, sir.
the Jim Crow laws. Like, I've heard of
Wall
them,
Street.
but Black Wall Street,
They didn't
right?
even talk about Jim Crow.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So, and like I even, went in depth on some other things where they actually have books out where they taught how to break your slaves. And part of it is when, people want to say slavery ended a long time ago and things of that nature, but the effects have carried through because some of the way the slave masters were taught to break families up were to remove the father from the household. And we see that a lot in the Black community.
Yep.
So with adding those additional elements, how was it presented to you guys? When did you guys hear about Black Wall Street?
Black Wall
This
Street?
year?
Yeah.
Real talk.
Me too.
It's been within the past couple years that I learned about Black Wall Street. Didn't know nothing about it. It's, and I think it's a touchy subject for me, Black history, because I think I try to figure out, well, how far back are we going? Are we really just keeping it here? Because, it makes me feel like our history started off the ship. You know what I mean? Like it goes so far beyond that. And so when I just think about Black history, I think number one, it sucks that it has to be called Black history. Like, it's American history. It is U.S. American history. If that's where we're starting, is when we got off the ship. It's U.S. history. Like, it's the history of America, which was built.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like, Why we were taught all this other stuff, man, and the real wasn't even put on there. I'm not really the one to talk about it, and you know.
Right. Because they will throw us a couple bones like, hey, peanut butter, thanks.
Come on
Thank
now.
you for the peanut butter.
Yeah.
They'll tell us that, right? But they won't tell us like
They
when
won't tell the
Black Wall
real.
Street happened.
Yeah.
They don't tell us the aftermath. Even if they let us know about Black Wall Street, they don't tell us about the massacre that happened afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And the reason behind that.
Yeah.
They don't talk about like Emmett Till in the books,
Come on, sir.
right?
Yeah.
They don't present that to us
on.
in the book.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, this may be harsh for the kid. Nah, we need to know what happened.
I agree.
How
I
can we
100%
avoid
agree.
it? Because we're seeing it again. And to your point, when you talk about how far back in history, okay, well, let's just go to 80s rap.
Oh, come on,
Yeah.
sir.
Let's just listen to
on.
what they were talking about,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What were they saying throughout rap about the
Yes.
police,
Man.
right?
The whole time. Public Enemy?
Right.
Yeah.
Come on.
So, and I went back and, I scoured some of my Spotify, not to shout out a brand, excuse me. But like, I started listening to some of this stuff and I was like, wait a minute, we were talking about, I didn't even know what I was
Time ago.
rapping.
Didn't even know what you were listening to, right? But they were
Listen to the
teaching
beat.
us.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
teaching us. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good
Yeah.
stuff.
So yeah,
Yeah, I definitely think Black history is not taught the way it should be taught in the schools. Even I have youth in my household right now, my little brother, and he's in high school, and then I have my little cousin that's in junior high school, and if I ask them about Black history, I'm not sure if they would know anything, aside from what I have taught them now. But before that, they pretty much didn't know anything about history. Sometimes they don't even talk about slavery like that anymore. So I took them to go see the Harriet Tubman movie because I'm like, that is significant, in our history. So I feel like we are very much sheltered when it comes to learning or knowing about Black history.
yeah.
I feel like because they gave us, they make us feel, I say they, but I think that because our culture has been so jacked, it's just been so jacked. I think for the younger people that they just see it all around now. So it feels like, oh, they love us, they like us, you know what I mean? So it's hard for them to get into the slavery, Wall Street, because we all good.
Right.
Everybody TikToking to our stuff, and
Right.
it's just it's
Right.
just, you know what I mean? It just, there's a cover up that's happening. I really feel that there's a cover up happening before the gotcha.
Even when it comes back to the education, it's like, I feel like a lot of youth now, they don't realize the importance of education. Like, you used to not be able to go to school.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a big thing.
you were not able to learn how to read. Like, you didn't know how to read. And so I feel like they took that away, like, as far as not knowing like how much our ancestors have fought for us and where we are today. And I feel like if they knew more of their history, they would want to do more. We would want to do more. We
Yeah.
want to accomplish more.
Yeah.
I think on my end, with education, that it was in Canada here, we mostly knew about US Black history. And the only reason we really knew about US Black history was if we sought it out ourselves. So I was curious. And so I, in high school, would kind of look into it. So I did know about like the Black Wall Street and the Tulsa and all that kind of stuff. And it was because I had to go out there and search for it myself. But it was never anything integrated ever in the education system from elementary school all the way up to high school. There was never any talk about anything Black. And because I also have that heritage from Jamaica, my parents were pretty good with sitting and telling us a little bit about our history. So I knew some there because on my dad's side, it was like, okay, how did we get the name Spencer? And then come to find out, it's literally the slave master's last name, that. And so I learned from that end. And then I looked at my mom's side, and we come from this Maroon Indian tribe, and then learning all about that. So that made me actually excited. So my experience was a little bit different. So I didn't have to hear all about just the slavery side and all those kind of things. But what I wanted to add with the education piece is that the church also fails, because historically there's so much Black history in the Bible, right? And we got brainwashed into this whole white concept that it's strictly this race only that did anything in the Bible, and that then translated into our children believing it. You know, for me, I never really saw any color because that's how I was taught. It wasn't even like God didn't have a color, right? And it wasn't until I started going to school that people were like, oh no, Jesus is white. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about his color because I just love Jesus, right? Yeah. So I think as a church, we're doing better now. But when I was growing up, educating us in the church, you know, to kind of know more about our history, even like as Margot was saying, before us coming off the ships, what was that like? And I think if we could share that more with our children and they share with their children's children, they'll have actually be more interested in doing it. Look what Black Panther did, just that movie alone. And that's fictional. You know, I think it will reciprocate and have the same effect on our generation and the generations to come when they see it more in a positive light. But if you're always hearing about your people being beaten up and thrown and chained, you don't want to keep reliving that every single generation to generation. We want to hear about the positive things a little bit more. And I think that's where education has failed, where we need to have it in the books. Like you said, Black history is American history, it's Canadian history, it's just history. Yeah. So it needs to be shared more.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
And I think you hit it when you said that it's kind of hidden. I think the struggles of today are hidden behind the fact that, one, when you speak about legacy, like the Black community is the #1 spending community in the world.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But we are also the #1 community that's in debt. So when we talk about legacy and we talk about the hidden struggle, like we see TikTok, we see, you know, the few Black people that are in Canada, the Toronto Raptors. That's the only Black Canadians,
that's the only
right?
Black,
So we see those people, and we see that the Black community has money.
Yeah.
We had a Black president.
Whoa.
We made it, right? Mm-hmm. But people don't understand the integral parts of redlining, of like I was saying, the Fair Housing Act, like, and like you were saying, like we just got some of these laws, like I'm talking the 1950s and 60s, right?
That's so
being
sad.
able to actually get home loans, because that's where legacy starts, right? It's having land, and because that's why we always talk about 40 acres and a mule, because we want land, we want housing, because housing allows you to actually start building a legacy, right?
And we deserve it.
So I think you're right that in the youth of our community, they don't know. They don't know that it's still not fair.
They don't know.
They're like, what are you talking about? Lil Wayne's out here. Right? What are you talking about?
Let's not even talk about him.
Like Sean Carter's rich.
A whole bone to pick about that young man.
It is a little upsetting sometimes when you see one person make it and then they say that, you know, slavery doesn't exist or equality doesn't exist. And it's like, you made it.
Yeah.
You've been picked, selected, handpicked.
Right.
And I don't want to take away from anybody's talent, but you're one in a few.
Yes.
There's still families and there's still a full community that's struggling.
You're right.
To just get a home loan, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the issue, is that when we do have leaders that do make it, or people that do make it, I feel like a lot of them don't come back to help. And granted, it doesn't have to be their responsibility, but if we're thinking about Jesus's way and God's way, like to come back and to help the community, help the poor, help the people that you kind of left behind, and I think that's a big piece that we're missing. When people do make it out, they may have charities and stuff like that, but when it comes to our community, we really don't have anyone in the community that say, hey, let's apply for this loan, let's apply, let's start a business up this way. How do we start a business? You know, if you have that mindset, like, I want to start a business, but when it comes to the how, you just get stumped there, then people just stop, so we need someone in our community that's able to teach us all those important things.
I agree, and I would actually push a little bit, just slightly in opposition, because I also believe that in trying to hold our community accountable for itself as well, that some of these programs are out there and we don't look for them.
Or we don't know about them.
We do a lot of barking, and sometimes we don't follow through. And I know even here locally in Boss Church, like we've had legacy, and we've had budgeting programs, and we've had all that. And I intimately know about these programs because some of them originated with close friends and even in my own household. And seeing us be able to say, hey, we have this budgeting workshop and nobody shows up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That
So
part.
I agree with you. I think it's twofold. We need to have these people that are educated in these specialized areas to come back,
Yeah.
show us, pull us with you. But at the same time, we got to take the steps. We can't just be dragged to
Yeah.
success.
Yeah,
That's
because I
not-
think there's a mental shackle that
There is, yeah.
that the minority community has, and I don't know what that thing is, but I really do think that there is some type of generational bloodline, something on our mental capacity to be able to see. Now, like you said, some of them make it out. Some of them make it out because they dare to just go there. But I think that there is like some type of block, or I like to call it a shackle, that is on us to where, oh no, we ain't gonna try that. We ain't gonna,
right.
oh no, I'll just stay right here. This is working just fine. I know what to expect right here. I ain't gonna go over there because, you know, and it's interesting. I'm gonna let you talk. But I just think there's something happening, or something has occurred in the spiritual realm that has caused us to be afraid to think bigger, be afraid to try harder, be afraid to come outside of the box and just do things that we haven't seen done before in our own personal lives, and our own, and you know, just be able to budget, to go without buying the chain, to go without buying the shoes. I got an issue. But there is something that that we're just afraid. And I think back to, you know, when you watch those whole slavery movies and it's like, oh no, don't massa good. You know, massa been good. Like, I'm good right here. I don't want to go any further for some reason. And I don't know what that thing is, but I do believe it is spiritual.
And I don't know if it's so much fear. It's also, I think, distraction. I think that's the issue, is that we are so distracted when it comes to our own lives and being able to, you know, when it comes to the fashion, we got to stay up on fashion. When it comes to, you know, the music, got to stay with the newest music, the newest Xbox. Like, there's just so much distractions in our community that we sometimes don't look up and to care about the programs, to care about the things that we do have available for us, on top of, you know, people that do make it that don't help us. So it's just like, it's so many different, it's so many distractions.
It is a lot of, there's a lot of pieces to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to tag on to what Margot was saying, it is a generational curse. It's literally that curse that we received from slavery, that many of us have not made the decision that we're going to have it end right here. That I identify it, I see this happening because we accept it too much. My grandfather was a drunk, so my father was a drunk, so then I'm gonna be a drunk, and my son's gonna be a drunk. You know, I was, you know, homeless, and my daughter was, you know, pregnant out of wedlock, and etc. And we accept it, and we haven't taken the time out to realize. And I agree with Margot, it is a spiritual hold, right, on our community to allow us to believe that that's all we need. Because like you said, Massa was good to us. So if we got to go to Massa's house, at least we're inside and we weren't out in the field picking cotton no more. So I can go over here to Massa and I feel real comfortable here, and I don't need to go. I know that is a spiritual bondage. That is a spiritual hold. And if we, that's why our community, we get into entertainment so much. We're good at entertaining, coming out, whatever, because when we were in bondage, we found ways to make ourselves feel good. Right? Yeah, so it's the same thing as 2020, 2021, 2022. If we don't get out of that mindset of saying, okay, you know what, this feels good just for the moment, but I need to go higher. We have to come to Christ to get us through that. The Holy Spirit, again, is always the key to getting that relationship to break all those chains that we talk about. And the second thing I wanted to point out is the PTSD that's in our community, right? So that also brings a whole nother level of fear that people don't think exists, right? So we're here, we're struggling. So it's not even, I think some people, yes, it's laziness, and they just don't want to do the work. But I think for another group of people, it's that fear. It's like, okay, well, what's going to happen when I get to another level and I am the only Black woman or I am the only Black man in this room by myself? But we need to get that boldness together and realize you're not by yourself. The Holy Spirit's right there with you, and you're good to go. You know, so I think it's an element of those two things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I want to encourage Black people, and I don't want to just say Black people, but we're looking at Black History Month, but at the same time we're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday this week, and so I want to basically say that I feel that we are deemed for this greatness that some of us have tapped into, but a vast majority of us have just not tapped into it. I think a lot of it has to do with we're still trying to figure out our identity, really who we are, and the power that we have, the authority that we have. And I don't want to just say it's inclusive to just Black people, but we struggle. The Black people is the nation or the culture or the race that struggles so badly to try to fit and just try to see where we're supposed to be going and who am I and how am I supposed to do this and what am I supposed to be doing, or should I just accept what I got? Or should it's like I don't know. I just want to encourage Black people and anybody that may feel this oppressed spirit over us, is that we are deemed for greatness. We are deemed. I mean, we've been created in the Creator's image.
Right.
We have been created in the Creator's image, and He has already given us great and perfect gifts, and our gifts make room for us. You know, like the gifts that He's literally has given us, or we have all of the tools that we need to be millionaires. We have all the tools that we need to be whatever your society calls success to be, or whatever you deem success to be. We have it's already been embedded. And in whichever way that we really want to go, there is something already great in us. But that box thinking, I really pray, I declare that the box in 2021 is going to come down off of Black people, off of anybody that feels oppressed. I really don't care what race you are at this point, but I'm declaring it. I'm just going to speak it on your life. If you're watching and you feel like you've been in a box all your life, I'm just going to say it, because in 2021, even if 2021 ends up looking just like 2020 did, I'm going to tell you, God is still working. The plan is still working out. You are better than just your everyday cycle that you've been walking in. You are better than the mundane. You are way better. I will never stop saying that. You are more than a conqueror. Look up what a conqueror is and realize you are 100 times better than what that is. Because we got to get out of it. I mean, it's been 2 years. I've been trying to buy a house. I'm trying to buy a house. Well, come on, girl. I'm talking to me. I'm talking to myself. Get with it. Okay, I'm done.
So, if we could just try to tie a nice little bow on this, if we tie this back to the Bible, we know the story of Joseph.
Yeah.
We know that Joseph got, well, I was going to say snatched from his family, but his family kind of like urged him out.
Yeah, they did.
You know what I'm saying? Did the okey doke on him.
Yeah, they did.
He got sent to Egypt. He was like, well, I'm gonna be successful here then, right? He spoke to the king, said, hey man, let me tell you a couple things. Let me spit a little word in your ear, right?
Yes, sir.
Got promoted.
Right.
Come on
Right.
now. Come on.
And then when things was about to go bad, he was like, hey, let me go call my dad and my brothers and let me pull them up here so we can get them up here, right? 70 of them
Yes.
come traveling to Egypt.
Yes.
So when you start to look for yourself in the
That's
Bible,
good.
when you start to look at yourself as an immigrant and you try to look for the Black people in the Bible, they got the tribes all got pulled to Egypt and was there for 200 years. and then left.
Yeah.
They came down, I think 70 or 90, Selena, correct me if I'm wrong, and left full, right?
Yeah.
They weren't there just by themselves.
Yeah.
They didn't just stay within their cousins.
That's true.
No, they spread it out.
They sure
We got
did.
in the bloodline,
Yes,
right?
they did.
So
That's
when we
good,
talk
Mike.
about the Bible,
Yeah.
we talk about Black history, you don't got to look far. Just turn a page.
That's
we
true.
in
That's
there.
good.
We're
We
there.
in there, right?
We're there.
So specifically, if you want to turn to a page, let's go to Galatians 3:28, which says, "There is neither Jew nor Greek.
Yeah.
There is neither slave nor free. There is no male and female. You are all one in Christ Jesus."
That's good.
So when we tie it back to the Bible,
That's good, sir.
we're not looking for what you look like, what you feel like, what you talk like.
Yeah.
We're looking for you to accept Jesus Christ.
Ooh,
So if
yes.
you haven't accepted Jesus Christ,
Yes.
take this opportunity,
Yes.
make the call,
Yes. Please.
make him your Savior,
Yes.
profess it,
Yes.
be saved.
That's
You
good.
can contact any of us.
Hit us up, please.
We should be in the comments right now, down there or to the side,
Yeah.
and come to Jesus and be saved. Reserve your seat in heaven.
Amen.
Get there.
Amen. We want to just pray that you remain motivated, that you remain encouraged, and yes, please hit us up, comment, subscribe, like, and make sure that you follow anything Boss TV and the Pew. We want to talk with you guys. We really want to. I know a lot of people say that, but we really want to talk with you. You know, we want to know, I didn't relate or I did relate. We don't care. We take love and hate and we'll work with it. We will work with it. So please hit us up, tell us what you think. And if there's any topics that you want to hear us talk about, we can do that too. Amen. We love you guys. Bye from the pew.